Good morning and welcome to the Department of Family and Support Services Disaster Relief Assistance Program Outreach and Recruitment RFP webinar.
Good morning, everyone. Go ahead, Jillian. Sorry. I was just going to say good morning and introduce myself. My name is Delaney Early. I'm a project manager at DFSS in the Human Services Division, and will be the point person for any questions on the programmatic end of this RFP, and will be walking us through the presentation. We have a few housekeeping items. Jillian, I don't know if you want me to start going through those or give folks a few more minutes to log on.
I would say give maybe another minute or two.
Perfect.
We seem to have a good amount now.
All right, great. Thanks, Jillian. We will go ahead and get started. So for anyone who just joined the call, to introduce myself, my name is Delaney Early, and I am a project manager at DFSS in the Human Services Division. I will be the point of contact for any and all programmatic questions related to this RFP. So please, drop any questions in the question box or the chat that you have during this presentation, and we will be sure to either address them now or in the form of a written amendment. And you can continue to send questions until the question deadline on April 30th, which we will go over that timeline and reminder towards the end of the presentation. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. Again, you are placed on mute right now, so please submit questions that you have during the chat. We have a break at both the midpoint and the end of the presentation to go through those questions. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the DFSS YouTube channel, so you will be able to review it at any point. And again, anything stated at this webinar is not intended to change the RFP itself. Any changes and answers to your questions will be submitted in written form in the form of an amendment. So this webinar is just to provide information and summation of the RFP that was released last Tuesday, the 21st. All right, so welcome again. You'll see to the left of the screen a brief agenda item of what we will go through during this presentation. This RFP is for the Disaster Relief Assistance Program. So the rest of the Human Services team working on this program is on the call and will be here to help monitor and answer questions. And this RFP is specifically for the outreach and recruitment function for this program. As we get into our presentation, we will go into more detail on what that means in terms of objectives and goals, and what that looks like for you and your organization. All right, so to get started, for anyone who is new to DFSS, our mission is working with community partners. We connect Chicago residents and families to resources that build stability, support their well-being, and empower them to thrive. You can see our priorities at the bottom of the screen. Um, we deliver and support high quality, innovative, and comprehensive services that empower clients to thrive, collaborate with community partners, sister agencies, and public officials on programs and policies that improve Chicagoans' lives and advance systemic change. We inform the public of resources available to them through DFSS and its community partners, and we store DFSS's resources responsibly and effectively. As I mentioned earlier, this RFP specifically sits within the Human Services Division at DFSS. And the Human Services Division is committed to addressing the needs of Chicago residents by enabling access to essential resources through its 6 community service centers and our partnership with a network of community-based organizations. And you can read below kind of a little bit more detail on what that means and what that looks like for us. The purpose of this RFP and the Disaster Relief Assistance Program overall, in 2023 and 2024, the exact dates are listed on the screen, Chicago experienced severe storms with unprecedented rainfall and high-speed winds, which caused widespread damages to homes and neighborhoods. And many households incurred significant out-of-pocket expenses due to these storms in order to maintain safe and stable housing. These challenges could have been compounded by a variety of other factors, including disaster-related job loss, the rising cost of living, and housing instability. So for this presentation, Disaster Relief Assistance Program will be abbreviated to DRAP, as you see here. And DRAP is designed to support households that are still experiencing financial hardship by addressing needs that were not fully met by FEMA, insurance, unemployment benefits, or other sources of aid. This specific program is a $15 million investment in recovery. It's federally funded through the Department of Housing and Urban Development through the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery. So the city has allocated $15 million to support low and moderate income households regain that financial stability through reimbursement for damages that they incurred due to the qualifying storms that we mentioned. Eligible residents may receive up to $15,000 in one-time reimbursement per household. This will cover rent, mortgage, and utility expenses for a period of up to 6 consecutive months. And we'll kind of go a little bit more into detail later on the exact kind of form of that eligibility. What we are looking for in this RFP specifically is a respondent who will lead the outreach and recruitment for DRAP, ensuring that Chicago residents impacted by the 23-24 storms can access critical disaster recovery resources. So we sort of outlined our key objectives here. We are looking for a respondent who can expand awareness in high need communities. And that looks like the design and execution of a strategic and data-informed outreach campaign that will prioritize residents in the most storm-impacted zip codes, ensuring that information reaches those most effective. We would like a respondent to drive equitable access to DRAP through targeted, culturally responsive, and place-based engagement strategies, specifically that are reaching seniors, renters, and populations facing barriers such as limited English proficiency, disability, or lack of broadband access. And we will talk a little bit more later about why those specific populations are important and priorities for this program. We would like a delegate that can support complete and successful application, and that's going to be through hands-on, in-person, and virtual application assistance to help residents understand their eligibility, gather required documentation, and then go on to submit high-quality applications. We would like a delegate to reduce barriers to participation. That looks like developing solutions to address digital, language, mobility, and literacy challenges, ensuring that all eligible residents have a fair opportunity to apply to the DRAP program. And then, of course, aligning closely with our programmatic team at DFSS. So the delegate agency will be coordinating closely with DFSS to ensure consistent messaging, appropriate applicant flow, and alignment with our program timelines, policy, and requirements. And as we kind of mentioned, the objectives for this RFP and these priorities are driven in research on the current state. affairs that these qualifying storms sort of produced. One of the main things is that there was a high amount of unmet need among renters. When you look at FEMA, SBA, and other sources of aid, there was approximately a $12.9 million gap in the loss that renters experienced versus the coverage that they received, which comes out to about only 60% of their loss, which made recovery uneven across households. So homeowners were largely made whole through FEMA and other assistance-based programs, but renters and other low to moderate income households are still facing financial strain. There also was a geographic concentration of storm impact. So the highest levels of impact were identified in the following 5 zip codes. So 60644, 60651, 60639, 60641, and 60624. So we are looking to have a targeted place-based outreach strategy that focuses on residents that reside in those zip codes. But then we also, want to engage in general priority populations. So seniors, renters, again, who are experiencing the greatest unmet need, and then any eligible resident who's going to face additional challenges applying to this program, whether that's due to internet access, language barriers, challenges gathering documentation. We're really looking for a delegate who can expand and provide hands-on application support, especially as many eligible residents are unaware of the available assistance or may be unsure on how to navigate this process. So that's kind of the current state that informed the goals, objectives, and priorities of this RFP. Here is a brief overview. We're gonna go into more depth on each of these sections, so we can just leave the screen up for maybe a minute to let everyone take a glance. This is again is a summation of what is published in the RFP. So please feel free to read through. And again, if any questions are coming to mind already, you can go ahead and drop those in the chat. And we will address those at the midpoint of the presentation. Okay, thank you, Jillian. We can probably move on. So our target population, the basic eligibility for DRAP is you have to be a Chicago resident, both at the time of the storm and at present. So you currently still reside in Chicago. It's okay if you did move, so that your address does not have to be the same as it was at the time of the storm, but it still does have to be located in the city of Chicago. You have to be part of a low to moderate income household, which for the purposes of DRAP is defined as up to 80% of the average median income. And then you also have to have a documented hardship related to either the 2023 and or the 2024 storms. So that covers your basic eligibility. For the purposes of outreach and recruitment, we do have focused outreach priority groups. Residents of the 5 priority zip codes that we mentioned above, that is where the greatest storm impact was kind of targeted. So we want to make sure that we're prioritizing awareness of this application within residents of those zip codes. And then we also want to prioritize awareness between seniors and renters, as these populations, for various reasons, either have a greater unmet need from the storms or might have additional barriers with receiving or applying for assistance. We also want to keep in mind that outside of these priority groups, there are populations that may have additional challenges with accessing an application such as DRAP. That includes people with disabilities, people without broadband connectivity, or people with limited English proficiency. So we do want to make sure that respondents to this RFP application are also considering these populations in terms of their outreach and recruitment strategies. Okay, so kind of the key areas of service of what we are looking for in for the RFP respondent. Number one being outreach and marketing. So an ideal respondent will design and implement a multi-channel outreach strategy to raise awareness of DRAP citywide, again, with targeted messaging for the priority populations that we mentioned across digital, print, and kind of in-person community-based platforms. An ideal respondent will be able to conduct in-person outreach through community events, workshops, and neighborhood-based activities in accessible locations such as libraries, senior centers, ward offices, and community organizations so that we can directly engage residents. And application assistance is, again, a key component of this, both in person and remote, providing that hands-on support to help residents understand if they are eligible for the program, and if so, gather the necessary documentation so that they can submit and complete successful applications. Um, Moving on, we also would like the ideal respondent to implement strategies to support residents facing barriers. Again, as we mentioned, limited English proficiency, lack of internet access, or low digital literacy, or any other challenges that may be an additional burden to creating a successful application completion. Um, we also would like the ideal respondent to develop and manage partnerships with community-based organizations. Subcontractors are not required, but they are allowed. And if so, you can use a subcontractor to either expand your reach, strengthen community trust, and ensure effective service delivery across, diverse neighborhoods. And then again, all of this done in coordination with the DFSS program team to make sure that all outreach, messaging, and application support is aligned with policies and timelines so that residents are receiving information that is true and correct and in line with the DRAP program. The following is a set of metrics that DFSS will use to track progress towards achieving the outcome goals and also to assess success. So as we're looking at the makeup of our applicant pool, we would like 50% of applicants to reside in the most impacted zip codes, again, as described in the target population section of the RFP. About 30% of applicants to identify as a senior, at least 30% of applicants to identify as a renter, and 90% of processed applications successfully assisted by the respondent to be approved for assistance. And that metric is essentially to ensure, again, that residents are receiving support so that the applications they're submitting are, complete and have, more likely to be successful. We definitely plan to track additional output metrics, and we welcome recommendations from respondents as you respond to this RFP. We do have additional performance metrics that we may use to monitor and recognize kind of intermediate progress towards those 4 original performance measures. We would like the outreach strategy, schedule, and materials to be completed within 1 month of award. At that point, outreach and recruitment will commence. Per month, we would like at least 500 households to receive DRAP information, whether that's through in-person recruitment and outreach. We would like at least 4 outreach activities organized per month, at least 3 application assistance workshops held per month, and to see, as a result of this work, at least 100 households submit their application per month. And given the metrics that we just discussed, within those 100 households, we would like at least 50 from the most impacted zip codes, at least 30 are seniors, and at least 30 are renters. Again, we encourage you to propose additional indicators and metrics, but this is kind of the standard that we will base performance on. In terms of case management and data reporting requirements, we encourage delegates to implement a proactive follow-up for incomplete applications. So that involves identifying and re-engaging applicants with missing information, implement real-time problem solving, specifically for issues such as documentation gaps or any eligibility confusion, consistent communication, so keeping applicants informed throughout the process to improve trust and application completion rates. And we also understand that this is a new program and there might be some complex cases that come up that are not, easily answerable. So any cases that do fall into that spectrum, can be escalated to the DFSS program team and we can help provide additional guidance or clarification. For data reporting requirements, we are going to be tracking outreach to application conversion rates. So we kind of want to monitor how outreach efforts actually translate into completed applications. We are going to be disaggregating data by priority population. So we'll be asking the delegate to report outcomes by zip code, age, so that we can identify seniors, renter status, and other key demographics that we will provide. We're asking the respondent to maintain high quality data entry and submit all reports according to DFSS timelines, and to again ensure that all client data is handled in accordance with city and federal requirements. Eligibility evaluation and selection process. Any eligible respondent, you may apply as a single agency or lead agency with multiple agencies serving as subcontractors. Both forms are welcome. This RFP is open only to nonprofit organizations. And we are going to now go a little bit more in depth on the evaluation process, but you can see in the chart to the right here the selection criteria and the points that are assigned to them. All right, I think we can go to the next slide. Thank you. For the selection process, so all proposals will be evaluated based on their strength and responsiveness to the specified criteria. DFSS may consult other city departments during review. Top scoring respondents may be invited to give oral presentations with advance notice. Any incomplete or unresponsive proposals will be rejected. DFSS may deny funding based on past performance or current area needs. And all services must be available citywide and delivered in culturally and linguistically appropriate ways. So additional things to consider, DFSS may consider organizational leadership, geographic coverage, and the ability to serve specific subpopulations. And DFSS reserves the right to request clarification or additional information, to conduct site interviews, or require oral presentations. So this is just kind of a high-level overview of our selection process. The commissioner, again, upon review of our recommended agencies, may reject, deny, or recommend agencies that have applied for grants based on previous performance or area need. So that's our kind of overall selection considerations, and now we will get into the more specific ones for this RFP. So looking at the first section, community involvement, we will evaluate applications based on the following criteria. The respondent demonstrates a clear understanding of the target population, including their strengths, assets, needs, and challenges. The respondent demonstrates client and community engagement activities that inform service delivery, has expertise working with the target populations, and has relevant capabilities and/or infrastructure needed to serve these groups. The respondent demonstrates agency practices that enable effective engagement and meaningful connections between their leadership and the communities and populations it serves. Organizational capacity. The respondent has qualified staff responsible for program activities, oversight, and general management, and has a compelling strategy to fill any necessary positions in a timely manner. The respondent has adequate systems and processes to support monitoring program expenditures and fiscal controls. And the respondent has secured data collection and management practices, along with adequate processes for quality assurance and timely data entry. Strength of proposed program. The respondent has an effective approach to identifying, engaging, and supporting program applications, including support to overcome barriers to participation. The respondent's proposed program is supported by a strong national or local evidence base and/or aligns with best practices for the relevant field. And the respondent provides concrete examples and evidence demonstrating their ability to engage, support, and retain participants from the target population and clearly define services to be provided. Performance management and outcomes. The respondent demonstrates evidence of strong past performance against desired outcome goals and performance metrics and/or other notable accomplishments in providing services to the target populations. The respondent has experience using data to identify problems in service delivery and to inform or improve its services and practices. The respondent has experience disaggregating data to identify and address disparities in program delivery. And then reasonable costs, budget justification, and leverage of funds. The respondent has the fiscal capacity to implement the proposed program prior to reimbursement. And the respondent demonstrates reasonable implementation costs and funding requests given the nature of the program proposed. The proposed budget supports the scope of work. In terms of attachments, please be sure to attach reports, studies, or other documentation that highlight your program's performance and impact. Be sure to attach the resumes of key staff who are overseeing the program, and make sure to attach your organization's chart and budget for this program. Okay, the timeline. So today, April 28th, we're hosting our pre-proposal webinar. The date to submit any pre-proposal questions is April 30th at 5 p.m., after which point we will address all those questions and release a written amendment in response, which everyone will have access to, and it will be emailed out. And then applications are due on May 19th, 2026 at 12 o'clock noon. In terms of budgets, a total of $200,000 will be awarded annually. This is again to design and execute an outreach strategy, conduct community-based engagement, and provide application assistance and support. There's a 15% max for indirect administrative costs. So we are looking for the respondent to submit a budget for 1 year or 12 months of services. Again, the maximum amount allocated for this RFP for 1 year is $200,000. The contract term is set for June 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2027. This will be on a reimbursement basis. Cost category definitions are attached in the budget instructions of the RFP. We recommend that you be thoughtful and inclusive when developing your budget and apply for your proposed program's actual costs, as we generally cannot provide you with more money than you request. And use the reasonable cost question on the application to discuss how you determined which costs are reflected in your budget. Some common mistakes that we see on budgets are fringes, so just double check your calculations. Supplies, they can be either under or over budgeted for. Client assistance, if this is an appropriate and allowable cost, don't forget to include it, and make sure that job description titles and uploads and your job description uploads have the same title. Put your budget in the appropriate column and show your match. Okay, at this point, we're kind of at the midpoint of our presentation here. So I want to take a second to look at any questions that may have come through the chat. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, but this will just be a reminder to go ahead and submit your questions. Let's see, I think one just came through. Is there a match required for this program? There is not a match required for this program.
I see another question just came through.
Oh, thank you, Jillian. Just checking with my team really quick. Yes, there will only be one organization selected. But again, as a reminder, subcontractors are allowed. Okay. Please continue to submit your questions. We will come back to the question and answer box at the end of the presentation. And any questions that do not get addressed live will be followed up in a written response via the amendment process. Okay, a final reminder for the due date. So applications to this RFP are due on May 19th, 2026 at 12 o'clock noon.
Thank you, Delaney.
Thank you, Jillian.
We will now go into application tips, and our most important application tip, and we cannot stress this enough, is to start your application as early as possible and save it as often as you can as you're working on it. And if you have never done business with the City of Chicago, please register into iSupplier as soon as possible. Review the RFP narrative and applications closely. Remember that they align with the scope and the selection criteria. Please use the information in the RFP for guidance in formulating your answers. There is a 4,000 character limit, which includes punctuations and spaces in iSupplier. Each response is allotted that 4,000 characters. And please do not, please try not to use the back button on your browser. You could potentially lose your work. And again, we can't stress it enough to start as early as possible. Just some tips for working in e-procurement. To submit multiple applications for a single RFP, applicants will need to set up a unique user account in iSupplier. The e-procurement system is not capable of submitting more than one distinct proposal per associated email address. Therefore, you must use a separate email address for each submission. You can submit your application and later amend it up until the due date of May 19th at 12 noon. However, we strongly encourage you to avoid the rush and possible mishaps by submitting early, and plan on your submission taking approximately 30 to 60 minutes. Please be advised that late applications cannot be accepted. Once 12 noon hits, there's nothing we can do as far as trying to get your application submitted. So that's a hard deadline, so please try to submit early. For hotline assistance, make use of the e-procurement hotline at 312-744-4357. That hotline operates during business hours, which is Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And they also have an email address. It's customer support at cityofchicago.org. There's a few agency requirements. We require agencies to provide articles of incorporation and any amended articles of incorporation. We also require the IRS affirmation letter for not-for-profit agencies. Please note that this letter must be dated within 60 days of your submission. And you can obtain this letter by calling the IRS directly. Their number is on the screen. However, if you are a for-profit agency, please submit your original letter from the IRS showing your FEIN number. Your agency's UEI number is required, as well as the central contractor registration, which can be provided from the entity overview page on the sam.gov website. And lastly, your certificate of good standing with the state of Illinois letter is required. We have a labor peace agreement ordinance, which applies to DFSS and CDPH delegate agencies that have 20 or more employees working for their organizations. Contractor must provide written notice to the commissioner or her designee within 72 hours of becoming aware that employees at your agency may want to organize or that a union seeks to represent employees. You may ask, what is a labor peace agreement? and it is an agreement between an employer and a labor union that ensures that an organizing drive is not impacted by union busting techniques, including employee retaliation. And in return, they will not strike or stop work in a way that will impact human services. For technical assistance, there is a link to the RFP and training documents under the alert section on our website. And for questions on registration and e-procurement technical assistance, please contact customer support at cityofchicago.org, as well as the helpline 312-744-4357. We also have documents and videos on the cityofchicago.org website under online training materials. And at this time, we're going to discuss how to enter your responses and accepting amendments. Step 1, in entering your response and accepting amendments, you select Create Quote from the drop-down menu in iSupplier in the Actions box, and then you click on Go. This will take you to the application page where you can get started. If the RFP you are interested in has been amended, and in this case it will be, you will need to acknowledge and accept that amendment to start and submit your response. And to accept that amendment, you click on View Amendment History, circled here, step 1B. To begin the acceptance and acknowledgement process, please follow these steps after clicking View Amendment History. First, you click on the document number. Next, you click on the infinity or eyeglass icon to review the amended changes to the RFP. Next, you click on the Acknowledge Amendments button to acknowledge receipt and understanding of the changes and proceed. And by acknowledging the amendment, you are indicating that you are aware of the changes made to the RFP in the amendment. When you get to this screen, you click on the I accept checkbox and then you click Acknowledge. Next, you click on Yes to indicate that you confirm your acknowledgement of the amendment. Finally, you click on the checkbox that you accept the terms and conditions, and then you click Accept to accept the terms and conditions. And that is the final step in acknowledging the amendment. Once the amendment is not acknowledged, you can move forward with submitting your application, which we'll delve into right now. So when you are ready to submit your application, meaning that you've completed all you selected all required documents and you uploaded everything and you filled out every requirement question, you start by saving your draft one last time and then clicking continue. If you are missing information, iSupplier will give you an error message at the top of the page, similar to our example here. And usually that error message directs to something left undone in the application. So in the last example, the error message indicated that the lines tab had not been completed. In the example listed on this screen, the error is about an unanswered question in the application or the requirement section. The quote value refers to your missing answer. Once your application is free from errors, you are now ready to proceed and submit. And at this point, clicking continue should put your application into the review and submit phase. Once you see this summary page, this is your last chance to review all of your data and to confirm that everything is accurate. So please take this opportunity to check all of your attachments and scroll to the bottom of the screen to see all of your responses. And at the very bottom of the screen, you will be asked to provide an electronic signature. Please be sure to fill in the signature before checking the box. Once you select the box and fill in your signature, you can click Submit. Once you submit your application, you will receive a submission screen similar to what's on the screen here. And e-procurement will also send a confirmation email within 24 hours of your submission. However, if you desire confirmation prior to that, you can feel free to call or email me. My name is Jillian Black. I'm the procurement proposal coordinator, and my email is jillian.black@cityofchicago.org. And at this time, we're gonna open it back up for any last minute questions. The deadline for questions is Thursday, April 30th, and those can be sent to Delaney Early. Our information is on the screen, and any non-programmatic questions that could be sent to, if you have any technical issue questions, that could be sent to customer support at cityofchicago.org, and as well as the e-procurement hotline. And if you want that confirmation that your submission has been accepted, has been received, you can email me, and my information is on the screen as well. There don't seem to be any other questions at this time. Program team, would you like to add anything before we close out?
No, I think that's good from us. Thank you, Jillian, for the overview on e-procurement. And thank you all for taking the time today to attend this webinar. As Jillian mentioned, please make sure you get your questions in by this Thursday, the 30th at 5 o'clock.
All right, thank you, Delaney. Good luck, everyone. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much, everyone.